Hello dear comrades, Eldar here. This is the fifth part of the Thomas & Friends Iceberg. This time we'll be exploring the fifth layer of this iceberg. For those who don't know, here is a reminder. In these videos we'll be breaking down one layer of my Thomas iceberg and I will try to cover each point as detailed as possible. If you haven't seen the previous 4 parts, be sure to check them out too. Now without further ado, let's dive in. Bertram and Smudger are the same engine. Some fans believe that Bertram and Smudger are the same engine. They believe this because they have similar faces and because little is known about them. Smudger, according to Duke, was turned into a generator and left standing in the shed. We don't know what happened to him after that. Bertram, however, is the opposite situation. Toby found him in an abandoned mine, but we didn't know anything about his past. This theory could very well be true as it sounds particularly interesting and even logical, but of course it's not. In fact, this theory was essentially started by YouTuber Thomas 1, Edward 2 and Henry 3. A few years ago, he made a whole movie in which this theory was proved true, and not long ago, he even made a remake of this movie. So I think this theory has potential. The Daisy's Theme Scandal. I was quite surprised when I found about this, but the classic theme of the character Daisy was inspired by a composition called The Stripper, which was created by David Rose. I think my explanation are unnecessary, you probably figured it out pretty well. Besides, the show's director David Mitton wanted to depict Daisy with pink buffers, but then ultimately decided to change them to the white. YouTube, please don't ban me. Daisy appeared in season 19. Continuing with the Daisy theme, a large number of different characters returned in the movie Sodor's Legend of the Lost Treasure. They all didn't appear in the 19th season as its events take place before this movie. However, there is one exception, and that's Daisy. She appeared in the background in the episode Thomas the Babysitter. I don't know if they did this intentionally or accidentally, given that we were previously shown Stanley driving passengers on Thomas's branch line, but it's pretty funny detail. Donald and Douglas in blue livery in the movie Sodor's Legend of the Lost Treasure. The team working on the movie Sodor's Legend of the Lost Treasure had the idea of giving Donald and Douglas a blue livery, similar to their appearance in the Railway series. However, this idea was abandoned and they remained black, as this is how Thomas fans remember them. Dave Axford, visual effect producer for Thomas and the Magic Railroad, explained that David Mitton wanted to add characters from his show Tugs to the movie. The plan was for Thomas to travel along the seaside and meet them there. Many tugboat models were sent from Britain to Toronto, Canada for the filming, but none were ultimately used. And continuing with the Magic Railroad, Thomas and the Magic Railroad sequel. I won't go into the production details of this movie right now, there's enough matters there for a whole video. I'll just say that the production of the movie Thomas and the Magic Railroad was a veritable production nightmare. The scripts were changed 1,000 times, scenes were cut, the team working on the movie argued with each other, and ultimately, despite all the efforts, the movie flopped at the box office. However, just a couple of days before the movie's premiere, Destination Films announced that a sequel was already in development. However, after the first movie received negative reviews and its poor box office promotions, the sequel was quietly cancelled. However, according to Twitter user Festive Carty, he spoke with Britt Allcroft about this. According to Britt, they never planned to make a sequel to this movie, and now it's unclear who to believe and who not. Many fans speculated that the movie Calling All Engine was likely meant to be a sequel. Science Lady and Diesel 10 appeared in it, but that sounds weird. Goldie Fell Railway is a part of the Skarlovi Railway in Heat Era. During the Heat Era, starting probably somewhere around the 9th or 10th season, the creators of Thomas tried to until the Goldie-Fell Railway with the Skarlovi Railway so that Skarlovi Railway could be called the Mountain Railway, and that's why the narrow gauge engines in the Heat Era are called the engines in the hills. Vicarstown Tramway. Vicarstown was supposed to have trams in operation starting with the Great Race, with 3 trams appearing in this movie. However, due to the numbers new feature and the movie complication production process, they had to be posted down. According to Ian McHugh, he initially had big plans for these characters. He wanted them to be involved in the idea for the episode called Controller at the Sea, and then this idea later evolved into the movie Big World Big Adventures. He hoped they would be able to do something with them in the future, but after the show moved to All Engines Go, those plans were finally abandoned. Although maybe they'll do something with them in the future project in 2026? Who knows? Thomas and Tugs crossover. Returning to Tugs in the Thomas and the Magic Railroad, there were rumors that David Mitton wanted to do some kind of crossover between Thomas and Tugs, but that idea was abandoned. Unused faces. Some characters have faces during the modeling period that they were never used in this series. Many people are very interested in these faces and try to do their best to find them, and many of these faces are pretty funny. One of the most interesting examples is Patrick the Cement Truck. Even though he only appears once, a fair number of his faces were created for him that were never used. George's prototype by Ertl. Ertl was one of the very first companies to produce model based on Thomas and Friends characters from the TV series, and recently prototypes of some of these models were discovered online. The most interesting is a model of George the Steamroller. The prototype despises him in the railway series style with his face built into the body, while the final version has a special face, as in the TV series. Stanley in the movie Hero of the Rails. Initially, as I mentioned in one of the previous Iceberg parts, the movie Hero of the Rails was supposed to be made in the style of model engines. Also in this movie, besides Thomas, Stanley would have played a leading role. He was supposed to assist Thomas and together they were supposed to fix Hero. However, this idea was abandoned. Tugs and Thomas are the same universe. Let's return to the topic of Tugs and Thomas. Based on all facts I have explained and some other fan theories, many fans believe that Tugs and Thomas exist in the same universe. One of the main links in this theory is Big Mickey. It was character from Tugs later translated to Thomas and even got a face starting in season 21. And speaking of Big Mickey's trains model on the official Thomas website. In 2020, the official Thomas and Friends website updated its characters pages to include new characters. One of these was Big Mickey. However, his page featured a photo from the game Trains by YouTuber Isle of Trains 323. Sometime later, Big Mickey's page was removed from the site. Adventures and Collectible Railway is not the same thing. In 2017, Fisher-Price released a line called Adventures, which replaced Take and Play. However, before this line came out, a similar line called Collectible Railway was launched in 2014. Many people think that these are the same things, but this is not. Right now, I will list for you several differences between these lines. Firstly, their packaging design is different. Collectible Railway has other trains from the collection shown in the edge of the box, while Adventures doesn't. Also, some Collectible Railway engines parts, like the tenders, are plastic and they are less detailed, while Adventures has everything detailed and well detailed. Also, Collectible Railway rails are thinner and yellow, while Adventures rails are thickly and mostly grey, with a few exceptions. And most importantly, Adventures was sold all over the world, while Collectible Railway was sold only in selected countries such as Canada, Brazil, India, Russia, Turkey and some European countries. You can see the full list right now on the screen. A wooden railway truck with a grey face. I spent a long time trying to figure out this story and it turns out to be very long and confusing, but I will try to tell this clearly as possible. In 1993, a model of Troublesome Truck was released. It differed from the regular version in that it had a printed face from another truck, while the original had a painted face. And yes, for some reason everyone calls it the white face truck, but in fact the face isn't white but grey, so I will call it that. Many people thought it was simply a factory error, but it turns out to be much more interesting. 10 years ago, YouTuber Wooden Railway Reviews released an interview with Roy Wilson, the creator of the line. One version of this interview is currently either hidden or deleted, but I was able to find an unedited version. If I can find it, I will take the link in the description. During that interview, Roy Wilson said it was originally a test model, never interested for sale. However, for some unknown reason, it made into factory production. Ultimately, only 200 of these trucks were ever produced. Everyone was shocked. This model was quickly dubbed as one of the rarest, and huge sums of money were demanded for it. There is even a dedicated wiki online listing all the people who own this model. Even today it sells for exhibition prices. And then things started getting weird. As far as I understand, new models of this truck have been discovered almost every month since 2015. So the question is, were there really only 200 of them? A little later, information surfaced that only 2,500 were actually produced. So how many are there really? We may never know. Mattel Theme Park in Arizona. In 2021, it was announced that Mattel will be opening a theme park under its franchise in Arizona in the United States. This park was also supposed to feature its brands including Thomas & Friends as well as a separated hotel. At this time, this news surprised many. Now, this park, if not already open, is even close to it. Also, in theory, it was supposed to open as early as 2025. And this is the end of the first layer of this iceberg. This is my last video in this year. I'll be taking a break for creating videos for the new year, and in the next year I will be back with new content. This year has been a quite busy one of the Thomas fandom, and in my opinion the best in the last couple of years. We have given so much new knowledge, found old lost things, and uncoupled a ton of new other information. And I really hope that 2026 won't disappoint us. I want to wish you Happy New Year and Merry Christmas, and I hope it brings us many happy moments. Well, that's all for today. Thank you all for watching and don't forget to subscribe. Thank you all. Goodbye, comrades.